All right, let's talk about something that keeps so many of us up at night. And I mean that literally. We're going to dive into 4 super popular natural sleep aids to figure out what the science actually says about them. I mean, seriously, why is it so hard? It's a question pretty much everyone asks at some point. We know we need it, we try our best, but for a ton of people, a really good restful night just feels impossible. If that's you, trust me, you are not alone. And this isn't just a feeling we all have. It's a cold, hard fact. Researchers are seeing that across the board, people are sleeping less, and the sleep we do get is way worse than it used to be. And that has some huge knock-on effects for our health. Because here's the thing. Good sleep isn't a luxury. It's not optional. It is absolutely fundamental. It's directly wired into how sharp our brain is, how we manage our weight, and our overall metabolic health. So yeah, getting it right is a pretty big deal. Okay, but a quick heads up here. The absolute best foundation for sleep is good habits. You know the drill. A consistent schedule, a pitch black room, putting the phone away before bed. This explainer is for those of you who are already doing all that stuff, but still find yourself tossing and turning, needing a little extra help. All right, let's dive right in. First, we're going to look at signals that our own bodies make to help us sleep. Think of these as our built-in internal cues. First up, the famous one, melatonin. You've definitely heard of it. The easiest way to think about it is like your body's own personal lights-out hormone. It's the signal that tells your brain, hey, it's getting dark. Time to start winding down for the night. And what's so cool is how it works on this really precise rhythm. It's all tied to the cycle of the sun. As daylight fades, your melatonin levels start to rise, giving your brain that prepare for sleep memo. They peak overnight while you're sleeping, and then as the sun comes up, they fall off a cliff to help you wake up. This natural clock is exactly why jet lag feels so awful. It just throws that entire delicate system completely out of whack. So the big question, does taking it as a supplement actually work? Well, the evidence points to a solid yes, especially for people whose sleep cycles are all messed up. For instance, if you look at studies on shift workers, taking melatonin helps them get to sleep faster and actually increases the total amount of time they stay asleep. But here's the thing, melatonin isn't flying solo. There's actually another key player in your body, a mineral that helps control the whole melatonin production process. And that other key player, it's magnesium. This mineral is a real workhorse in the body. It's involved in literally hundreds of different processes. But for sleep, the theory is that it helps by quieting down the nervous system and, like we just said, by helping to regulate that super important sleep hormone, melatonin. And the science seems to back this up too. Get this, in one 8-week study on elderly adults, the group taking 500 milligrams of magnesium every day didn't just say they had better sleep than the placebo group. When they did blood tests, their actual levels of melatonin were higher. Pretty cool, right? But, and this is a huge but, here's the catch. That study was done on elderly adults, who are often a bit low on magnesium to begin with. So we really don't know for sure if someone who already has perfectly healthy magnesium levels would get that same sleep-boosting benefit. Okay, so that covers what's going on inside our own bodies. Now, let's head out to the garden, so to speak. We're going to check out 2 really popular plant-based sleep aids. And first, we have what I call the Valerian root dilemma. This one is fascinating because it really highlights a big challenge in sleep research. See, on one hand, you have study after study where people who take valerian root say they feel like their sleep is better. But on the other hand, when scientists hook them up to machines and look at objective data, like their brain waves, they don't see any real change. And that's really the main takeaway from a bunch of scientific reviews. All the improvements they saw were subjective. They were based on how the person felt. Now, does that mean it doesn't work? Not necessarily. A good feeling is still a good feeling, but it does mean the hard, objective evidence just isn't there yet. Next up is lavender. You know the smell, right? It's famous for that incredibly soothing fragrance. For ages, its main claim to fame for sleep has been aromatherapy. And there are actually studies showing that just sniffing some lavender oil for about 30 minutes before bed can improve sleep quality, especially if you just have mild insomnia. But what about actually taking it as a supplement? Well, a 10-week study looked at patients with anxiety and found some really compelling results. Now, both the placebo group and the lavender group got better, which is common, but the group taking the lavender supplement saw an improvement that was 14 to 24% greater than the placebo. That's a pretty significant bump. So let's talk safety. For its most common use, aromatherapy, a few drops on the pillow or in a diffuser, lavender is considered very, very safe. It's a really low-risk thing to try. But taking it as an oral supplement, that's a slightly different story. While it was tolerated pretty well in that study we just mentioned, it has been linked to side effects like nausea for some people. It's just a good reminder that natural doesn't automatically mean zero side effects. Okay. Phew. We have covered a lot of ground: melatonin, magnesium, valerian, and lavender. So, what's the actual takeaway for you for tonight? Let's put it all together. So here is the bottom line, the cheat sheet, if you will. Melatonin has moderate evidence. It's pretty good for things like jet lag, but we're still not sure about long-term safety. Magnesium seems most helpful if you're actually low on it, but the evidence is still kind of limited. Valerian root, the effect seems to be mostly subjective, a feeling. And lavender shows some emerging promise, especially for milder issues, but the research is still pretty new and the studies are small. And this brings us to what might be the single most important point of this entire explainer. None of these things are a magic pill. They aren't a cure. They're just tools, and they work best when you use them on top of an already solid foundation of good sleep habits. And so that leaves us with the final question, which is really all about you. Now that you've seen the evidence, the strengths, the weaknesses, the catches for each one, you can make a much more informed choice about which tool, if any, might be the right one to add to your personal sleep toolkit. Thanks for tuning in.